Hi guys, Paul here from the Open Mind Institute with a question for you. What makes you, you? Well, if you think about that for a moment, you might come up with some answers around your experiences, your exposure to the people who have influenced those experiences, such as friends, colleagues, loved ones, family, your personality, right? Your concept of self-identity. There's a lot of variables as to what makes you, you. But how flexible is that concept when you're facing adversity, when you're facing uncertainty? The thought I had in my head just then was ego, because that also forms a part of who you are and can become a preventative, a barrier to you changing you in times of adversity, right? That ego set piece wants to preserve this concept of self-identity that we show the world. I think in some respects, particularly the last or the most recent generation in this technological age that we're in have lost their way in terms of that superficiality, in terms of projecting something that lacks substance in order to form their identity. They're caring too much about what the world thinks of them or what the world expects them to look like, to portray. So their identity, in essence, has become diluted or uncertain. But for the most part, we have this concept, this program that we run around our self-identity. And when shit hits the fan, that's brought into disrepute, right? People struggle mentally because they can't fit into that same peg because the parameters have changed. So what needs to be done? Well, the first and most important step to becoming agile in terms of your concept of self, changing the parameters of your conditioning, the first step is always self-awareness, right? Self-awareness. You might think you're self-aware, but are you able to catch that little voice, that inner narrative in moments of uncertainty, in times of stress and adversity, or like most people, 95% of people, do you revert back to your conditioned response? Do you come from a place of anger, of heightened emotion? So how do we become more self-aware? There's two very powerful ways that are backed by science, and they are meditation and mindfulness. So make that part of your daily routine. Your self-awareness will shift. When that self-awareness hits a higher state of consciousness, you're able to spot moments where you have the potential to respond differently, that is outside or completely different from your conditioned response, right? So you can catch what they call the stimulus response gap, which neuroscience now tells us is an average of about 5 seconds. So instead of, this trigger occurs in your life and you have this conditioned, sometimes limiting response, you're able to catch that stimulus response gap, take a breath, do a critical analysis in a nanosecond, and tell yourself, well, what's another way I can look at this? How can I change the narrative? Instead of telling myself, I can't do this, I'm going to ask myself, how can I do this? And you're creating new responses, new outcomes, new results, and ultimately a new reality emerges. You see, your personality, your concept of self is fluid. It changes. It's not fixed. Similarly to, atoms and molecules vibrating, everything is in a constant state of flux. Everything is changing. When I hear people say, this type of person won't change, that is a lot of bollocks. We're constantly changing. You get to define who you are in the moment. You get to choose your responses, right? In the words of the late, great Viktor Frankl. He said, between stimulus and response, there is a space between, and in that space lies our ability to choose our response, right? And within that ability, within that response lies our true growth and freedom. And ultimately, that's what we want. Freedom from the paradigms of your limiting conditioning. This is tip of the iceberg stuff, and we go through this in our Transmental Evolution coaching program at the Open Mind Institute. If you are struggling in times of adversity, and if anything I have just said resonates with you, I'll put a link I'll put a link on the bottom of this video for you to find out more about our Transmental Evolution coaching system. I know it will help you, as it is helping my coaching clients from around the world. But ultimately, this is a great juncture to create the shift that you need, that metamorphosis, to move toward what I call your higher self, where you can become agile and respond to situations successfully to create the reality that you deserve. That's it from me. Always keep an open mind, and I will speak to you shortly. Thank you.